My
You look like a
dog, my
star.
we're recording.
Yeah, you look good.
Well, just back from 2 weeks working in Thailand. So
How was that?
great. I've been working there since 2006. So we had a new project. Now I've got four new projects to go back. So it's about training in traumatic brain injury and anti-aging medicine and wellness medicine and stuff like that. And working with a monk. I'll send you some pictures. So
Yeah.
I'm going to turn into a monk and shave my head. Try that out. Let me see with some light on. There we go. Maybe that will help a little bit. Shine some light on it. Not really. Anyway, so what are we doing?
Oh, you're always working. I know we talked briefly just a little bit ago, but what's new with you in regards to this endeavor you got going on with Texas?
Uh, okay, so a couple of things happening in Texas. In March of this year, by one of our patients who was a major out of Fort Hood, he promised that when he got better, he'd find a way to help our cause. So in 6 months, he was better off all his medication, and he gets a job working for the Texas Department of Health and Human Services. He introduces me to the people there, and I end up lecturing on March the 8th on my subtle presentation on why I don't believe in PTSD. It's TBI and PTSD. It's an article that I ended up writing, which is on my website. And lectured to 160 some odd people about TBI and PTSD. And what I presented at that time was a study that we did from a group of our veterans, where a group of them had been given the diagnosis of TBI by the VA, and then another group that were given the diagnosis of PTSD. In looking at this larger group of PTSD, all of them had TBI prior to the development of PTSD. So there are two groups, TBI and PTSD, and we put them into our general treatment protocol based upon their laboratory testing, their 28-point biomarker. And the group that had the TBI, they had in 1 year 72%, 74% improvement in a year. The group with PTSD had a 72% improvement in a year using the same treatment protocol as we use for, generic TBI, because I really don't believe in PTSD. So I gave this presentation, and it led me to the Office of Acquired Brain Injury in the state of Texas, which is a unbelievable opportunity for anyone, whether or not they're a veteran or a civilian in the state of Texas, to have the ability to find a doctor who can treat them, and the state will end up paying whatever differential there is from after charging the insurance company. So it means that people won't be stuck with a heavy bill, because a lot of the stuff that we do is rejected by the insurance company as being unnecessary. So that's one venue there, which led me into another area, which is with a department called CRS, which helps with injury and medical conditions in Texans. And it will allow me to provide my services directly to both civilians and veterans. And it'll be offset, the charges will be offset by the state. So it means people who have been unable to get into our protocol or to a similar protocol, that now there's a means, for financial reasons, now there's a means to do it. So what we're offering is a reduced fee for service, as well as hopefully I'll be talking with the state about how we can reduce the costs by doing some creative billing. If I order labs and have the laboratory run the labs and have the laboratory bill for the labs to the insurance company, the costs are, retail costs.
Yeah.
So what I would be doing is offering wholesale costs for it. Whatever my cost is, pass it on to the organization, which means it'll save about $2,000 per person for their assessment or for the cost of it. And that money can be used there for more people as opposed to only one person. So that's another project. So Andrew Moore and I are working on that with the state of Texas as vendors or contractors to the state. But it will cover both. And the most exciting thing that happened beginning of the year is that Warrior Angel Foundation, through their connections to the government and through the policy writers, were able to present to the state of Texas a bill, which was called the House Bill 4185, which was a proposal for funding for a pilot program in the state of Texas for an amount of money that would equate out to about 250 participants, candidates, Texans, and they would be our veterans. And so it went through the committee, which is called Defense of the Veteran Committee, and in one day testimony, and that evening they voted on it 100%, 9-0. And what was interesting is they recorded the testimonials, and I think it's on my website, or I can send you a link. It's worth watching. And these are patients, and one is Christy is a spouse of the major from Fort Hood, and she's very emotional, telling the story of her husband, and he's got all his medication out on the table and so forth. And in 6 months, he was off 8 medications and back getting a job, doing very well, and sleeping, and just came back to being who he was prior to all the traumas. He had a lot of traumas and had been in the military 30 some odd years, I think it was.
Wow.
30, yeah. 28? I think it was 28 years. But anyway, so the House bill gets passed on a Thursday through committee, and then it's sent to the House of Representatives in the state of Texas 1 week later. Very short time interview. It's usually months afterwards, and usually they don't vote on it at a committee that same day. It's usually weeks after, but they did because they saw the benefits of the program. They saw it in a group of 5 or 6 testimonials that were given. Andrew was there. We had a couple other people that were there, and people who haven't been through the program but have observed the outcome of our protocol. And then it went to the House of Representatives, and 147 positive votes. There were some 2 people that didn't vote, but it was the majority that voted for it, bipartisan. It wasn't, and in one day they got it and voted on it. Okay. And then it went to the Senate, and it got hung up in the Senate because of politics. So it got paralyzed, and it ended up dying in the Senate. But fortunately, because of the major, he's got connections with congressional representation, congressmen, senators, federal, from the state of Texas, that he's worked with in the past when he was active in the military. So they've now stepped in to try and see how they can help both at the local Texas and in federal in Washington to see how they can help. So another thing that happened was in April 4th, I was invited to give a presentation to Walter Reed's Department of Functional Medicine, and that went very well. I got feedback that it went very well based upon my liaison to the department, and I ended up taking the PowerPoint presentation and wrote a 10-page paper, and I sent it to the head of the department, the doctor in charge, and he responded by calling me the next day or second day and said we got to work together. So they're helping me to learn about how to build a presentation for Washington. And there's a thing called AMSUS, AMSUS, which is an organization that brings physicians, healthcare providers, scientists, and so forth to provide posters and lectures relative to what unique issues they're doing in medicine. So they've given me an opportunity to do that. Whether or not I'll be accepted by the organization or not is the issue. But I think this is a great opportunity. The paper was based upon the presentation, which is entitled Neuroinflammation, the Road to Neuropsychiatric Illnesses. It's on my website. I published about 5 papers in the past 3 months. And diverse areas, that paper on PTSD, TBI, another one on neuroinflammation and neuropsychiatric illnesses, another one on tinnitus. The fact that we now have almost 54.9% reversal in tinnitus in 101 veterans. Most of them are Army, they're on the ground, and they've done, very well. And every month we get an update from them on how well they're doing. And it keeps on getting better. The longer they're on the anti-inflammatory protocol, which fixes the brain and stops the neuropsychiatric conditions that are precipitated by the inflammation that was begotten by trauma.
Yeah.
So that's.
I want to take a moment to go back to this. There's 2 things: the amount of work that it takes to bring options that aren't pharmaceutical to government so that they can option that, versus how quickly we can get a new drug approved and shoved down veterans' throats. It's insane. I have the same issue. And when I look at my medicine cabinet now, it's the protocols that I got from you, which is, if you've never gone on the website and you haven't tried the products yet, it's 2 packets. It's literally 2 packets and a few some supplements that I take in the morning, and versus what I've gotten from the VA, which is, it doesn't even fit in my kitchen cabinet anymore. It's in its own cupboard, which is just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take the time to really figure out what's gonna what medications are going to affect each other and then cause a reaction that you're gonna have to go back to them to talk about. They just want to give you as many painkillers as they can give you. They just want to give you as many bottles and pills that they can just shove down you. Oh, don't worry, we'll mail it to you. It's so easy, we'll mail it to you. So now I get a box of pills versus the nutritional supplements that I got from your website. And it's like, wow, like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We won't fund it, but we'll fund the pharmaceutical options.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, I got it. These are nutraceuticals, supplements, nutraceuticals. I call them nutraceuticals because they are natural pharmaceuticals. And these are, took 16 years to develop them to the point that we're at. And the issue is that people look at supplements, nutraceuticals as not being real medication. But if you look at all our medication, where'd they come from? Natural sources, and they've just been molecularly tweaked. All our products are nanoliposomal, which is a delivery system, which means that it helps to get as much of the product you take in by mouth into the system, as opposed to wasting it by acid or passing through the stool and urine. So our results have been great, and every day I get an email from one of our vets, and I posted one up on the website, tbihelpnow.org, under the science. And we just started working with SWIC, the boat operators for the SEALs. And one guy, in less than 4 weeks, sends me this incredible story, and then he just sent me one 5 weeks. how much better he's doing. His mood. He said, "I'm back to who I used to be." And, they don't need to take the medication because the medication, as we've talked about in the past, it masks the symptoms. It doesn't treat the underlying cause. And that's the focus of our entire assessment and treatment protocol, is that we look for how the trauma, whether or not it was a physical trauma or a psychiatric trauma, how it has changed the chemistry in the brain. And then go about fixing the inflammation and replenishing whatever it is that is deficient. And this is not a lifelong treatment protocol. I mean, for the major out of Fort Hood, he was on full protocol for only 6 months. And then he didn't need it anymore. He's still taking the Brain Rescue 3, the orange pack, the stuff you take in the morning before breakfast, the nutraceutical, because it helps with clarity. I mean, I started my morning off with that because I only slept 3 hours last night. So I'm still a little jet lagged from coming back. Okay. So, yeah, so that's basically what's been going on. Trying to disseminate the information to as many outlets as I possibly can. I did a podcast yesterday on Parkinson's because we reversed Parkinson's. Did you see the video? Did you see the video on the 93-year-old Korean War vet with dementia? Did I send that to
No,
you? Okay, I'll
no, I
have
don't
to
think
send
so.
it to you. He's six. He's 93. Yeah, in 60 days, his dementia disappeared. And it's not by me. It's by his neurologist, his internist, and his son. His son is the guy who founded a great team in Florida. It's a 513C military support organization. So I sit on their board as consultant, medical consultant. And he'd sent some people to me. He saw the end results, the positive results, and he called me. He said, my dad has dementia. Is there anything we can do to help? So what we sent him was basically what, you are on. And, I just sent it to him. And 60, 70 days later, I get an email. My dad's dementia's gone. I said, really? So I asked him if we can do a Skype call so I can put him through some questions to challenge him. And I'm asking him questions about dates and places and stuff. He's got it nailed. And then I asked him about his history, educational history. And I think it was a PhD in adolescent and young child development. And so we had a great conversation for about 20 minutes about that area. And subsequently, the son, Kerry, ends up doing this really professional 1 minute, 47-second video of his father talking. And the father is telling the listeners that he no longer has to write anything down. He memorizes, he remembers everything. And every day it's getting better. And he's in the gym 3 days a week, an hour each day. He's driving. 93, he's still driving. And he said that in the past, he'd come home and put his keys down, couldn't find his keys. Now, everything
Yeah,
he has
that's still
organized,
me.
he knows, he sees everything. I mean, he recalls it. He says, it's all here. And he's got connectivity to it, which is, the issue with neuroinflammation is that it interrupts that, continuity of thought. You put the keys down, the brain takes an image of where you put it, your memory engrams. And so when you, go to find it, you know where it is because you stored the memory link of, top left drawer, top of the coffee table, the entry hall, bureau, whatever. So, and some people it's rapid. I mean, his was so fast, age wise and history wise, trauma wise, and the fact that he'd already had dementia. He already had cognitive impairment, we'll call it cognitive impairment before we actually call it dementia. I think that's probably more accurate. Cognitive impairment. Gone.
And that's insane. That's one of the things that all of us fear losing our ability to function at our later years in life. And from everything we've been told is it's you can't repair it, you can't fix it.
Hmm. But our entire science is based upon disproving that. We've had Parkinson's patients that have improved. We've had multiple sclerosis. I've got four now military that were given the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, and they're all doing better. I just got a new one Tuesday, and we'll see how well he does. But there are neuroinflammatory, neurodegenerative processes, and if you have a history, and I deal only with military, with the basic training or exposure to IED or blast wave trauma from out in the theater, or during basic training, you're throwing grenades, you're shooting mortars, you're firing 50 cal if that's what you're doing. The tankers, with the blast of the round that goes through the cannon, and these all create blast wave trauma. And then in the civilian population, the motorcycle accidents, the bicycle accidents, the motor vehicle, car accidents, these all create processes or initiate processes that lead to inflammation. And as long as you have this inflammation in the brain, that over a course of time will slowly eat away at pathways in the brain and slow down the neurotransmitters or destroy the neurotransmitters or shut them off so that you can't have the nerve one talking to nerve two to three, four, five, and all down the line, leading from one part of the brain to the other part of the brain, from the visual center in the back to the interpretation on the side, parietal temporal lobe, where you pull your words out and you know what you're looking at. So we've had people who initially came in and you hold up an object and you say, "What is this?" And they say, "Apple." Okay. Or else you say, "What color is this?" And they say, "Green." It might be colorblind, but they say green or purple or yellow or whatever. You have male pattern color blindness, deuteromic color blindness? No, not that I know. And decision making, frontal lobe, the ability to make proper decisions. That's probably the reason why in the majority, in over 1 million incarcerated individuals are military, over 1 million throughout the United States. And it's because they made poor decisions. Well, the executive function is in the frontal lobe, and that's the one that's damaged the most common in all activities, not only the military, but at car accidents, slip and fall, dune buggies, ski-doos, surfing, skiing on water, skiing on snow. That repetitive pounding gets the frontal lobe, or stopping short in the car. You don't have an accident. You just, learning how to, your kids learning how to drive. That's why I think I got part of my traumatic brain injury. I have 3 daughters, and teaching them how to drive, and they're playing with the brake and the gas, and they're pumping on the brakes, and you're going like this, and that damages the frontal lobe. So
Yeah.
a lot of things that we've learned.
How is it possible to repair those pathways? What is actually occurring? And it's so hard to envision this and try to see how the repair is actually completed.
Yeah, what happens is the trauma, regardless of how it occurs, starts the immune system, the cells in our brain called microglia, causes them to start dumping cytokines, the same cytokines that is causing death in COVID. Cytokine storm. Well, the brain has a form of cytokine storm, the same kind of chemistry. And that chemistry leads to alteration in pathways, chemicals. All our pathways are all propagated by chemicals called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitter goes from, as I said, from neuron 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And if there's inflammation, it might impede the production or release of the neurotransmitters. So your one neuron 1 to 2 to 3, it's working very well, and then it gets to 4, which is in the area that you've had trauma, and that area is not making the neurotransmitters, whether or not it's acetylcholine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, serotonin. It's not being made. So what happens is the signal stops there. And maybe that's the pathway that's the anti-depression pathway, the one that makes you alert, not depressed, or the one that deals with an area of the brain called the hippocampus, which is memory, recall, and the ability to learn new things. And that area is damaged, or that area is inflamed, so it can't produce the NMDA or the GABA or the neurotransmitters that deal with uh, long potentiated long-term potentiation, which is our memory. That's what the science name is, long-term potentiation, and it can't be made. It's NMDA, which is a receptor. The receptor is damaged, or the chemistry of the receptor is damaged. It might be physically intact, but the chemistry that actuates it, it's like you might have a brand new Porsche, brand spanking new, just off the assembly line, beautiful, buffed up, everything. You've got a little tinting on the windows and everything. And you get in it, put the key in it doesn't drive. No one put gas in it. You put gas in it, neurotransmitters, and you get the action, you get the response, you get the motor humming in, you get the move. You get to move down a pathway. Well, that's what happens in the brain, is that without the proper chemistry, nothing moves. So what happens is you become cognitively deficient, meaning memory, recall, and the ability to learn new things. You see someone who comes up to that you've seen every day, for the past 20 years, and then all of a sudden you don't have the chemistry to make the connections that says that face is this name. And then you apologize when you get back on to get the inflammation taken care of, you get the hormones, you apologize to your wife for not remembering her. Okay. Might be a given, or might be fortuitous, but this is how it works. So when you fix the inflammation, then the chemistry can start to come back to normal. And part of the chemistry are things that we call growth factors, neurotrophic growth factors, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, brain growth factors, stem cells called OPCs. They all need to have what we call a neuropermissive environment. And that's an environment that helps the neurons to sustain themselves, to heal, repair, and to function. It's like having, a plot of grass where your dog goes and pees on it all the time, and you don't water it down. What happens is it gets burnt out because the chemistry is wrong for that area of grass. And so if you remove the irritant or the damaging pH, neutralize it, what happens is the grass has an opportunity to regrow. Yeah, you got to throw on it some nutrients, you got to water it right. Same thing with the brain. You got to have the right nutrition in the brain, and you got to hydrate well as well. So, that is how you can take someone who has traumatic brain injury with symptomatology, whether or not you call it CTE, PTSD, ABC, EFG. You can take it, fix the milieu, the pH, the inflammatory environment, and then feed it to get better. And things like thyroid hormone, vitamin D, DHEAS, pregnenolone, allopregnanolone. These are all important hormones for the brain to help it to stimulate to heal. But in this inflammatory state, they can't be made. They're shut off. The control center in the brain, the hypothalamus, under inflammation or exposed to inflammation, won't make the trigger to generate your hormones.
Really?
Yeah. It's a 2013 article talking about neuroinflammation affecting glial cells, the cells in the brain that help the brain, the area of the brain called the hypothalamus, to generate the signal to tell the pituitary gland to make the signals to turn on the gonads, ovaries, and in females, obviously, but you don't know these days, and the testicles for making testosterone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, we also have found that inflammation from certain vaxes and inflammation from certain infections can cause inflammation in the brain that shut off the hormones, shut off the ability to make testosterone, estrogen, and sperm and maturation of eggs. So we are anticipating seeing a lot more infertility, a lot more hormonal deficiencies, dysfunction.
Yeah.
Because
the infertility, that is a huge issue. That and low testosterone. That and again, this is all anecdotal because this is all based on just my interviews, my reaching out and discussions within individuals, soft professionals in the community. But one of the biggest things that I have seen is the extremely low testosterone across the board. And now starting to reach out and see a lot of infertility as well. That is huge. And
Yes.
I think it was our conversation was the first time I heard that ibuprofen could have been a silent villain this entire time. And it's the most prescribed medication in the military.
Yeah. I've basically changed my interview when I see a pattern. Now, what you're referring to for your audience is that in 2018, an article came out of all places, Denmark. And what they found is that ibuprofen, Motrin, will cause the cells that are responsible for making testosterone in the males, called Leydig cells, and testosterone in the females, called thecal cells or thecal cells. It stops them, it blocks them from being able to make hormone because it makes the receptors for the luteinizing hormone insensitive. So, the military, all the vets that I see, they say they called it pain candy or Skittles, pain Skittles. And I find a lot of guys that have very low testosterone, and the signal, luteinizing hormone, to turn it on testosterone is elevated. And that's a common pattern with ibuprofen related testicular and thecal cell dysfunction. And so we've been able to push through it by the use of one of our products that we use. And it might take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to push through it. But we're able to push through it in most cases. We do have a couple of failures, and those failures are most commonly associated with those that have taken high dose of testosterone for long periods of time, where it burns out the circuitry. So, but ibuprofen, I haven't found it with any of the other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, COX-2s and whatever the other ones are. But I haven't seen it. The literature has only been talking about ibuprofen, and it's something that I keep on sharing with the docs that I train twice a year because it's a very important means of recognizing an alternative approach. Instead of throwing them on testosterone, you can use other things like clomiphene citrate, e-clomid, to try and push through the block. And we've been pretty successful in pushing through the block so that we can turn their system back on so it's functioning.
Yeah. And testosterone seems to always be on the discussion block when I meet with guys that are transitioning, guys that are looking for answers. But we've gotten ourselves into this idea that we have to immediately rush into treating our low testosterone by going and seeking out a endocrinologist and taking a massive amount of testosterone cypionate. That's not the answer, come to find out.
No. Absolutely not. Um, One of the things that really freaks me out is that I've got a lot of 20-year-olds that have been put on extremely high doses of testosterone, 150, 200 milligrams. I've had someone up to 500 milligrams. And the problem with that in someone so young is that when you give testosterone or estradiol in females and testosterone in females, what happens is those both shut off the most important hormone that's produced by the pituitary called luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone has the responsibility of turning on testosterone production in the males through the Leydig cells and females in the thecal cells. But when you use testosterone, it shuts down the luteinizing hormone, so you don't make it. So all your testosterone comes from testosterone that you're injecting. The problem is that you need luteinizing hormone in the brain to turn on more than 35 hormones. And there are articles that have been written that talk about within 4 to 6 months of being placed on purely a testosterone regimen, that you develop psychiatric problems like irritability, emotional volatility, insomnia, cognitive impairment. And that's because you burnt out more than 35 hormones in the brain that are extremely important for neuropsychiatric functioning in the brain, like things like pregnenolone, DHEA, allopregnanolone, progesterone. Also, it drops cortisol production in the brain because cortisol comes from cholesterol down a pathway, pregnenolone, progesterone, 11-oxycortisol, and cortisol. So it will impede its production. And that's why you get the psychiatric, psychological changes in 4 to 6 months. And very frequently, patients that I've gotten from other doctors, they tell me the story. They went up to their doc and said, "Hey, I felt really great in the beginning, but I don't feel as well now." And that's 4 to 6 months down the road on the average. So the doc increased the testosterone level, and they go on to the increased testosterone. They do well for a month or two, and then they crash again. And that's when I see them, or that's when they end up looking for alternatives, because testosterone is not the way to start. The way to start is to do everything possible to regenerate your body's own ability to make its own hormones. And I call that biological resiliency. So you want to give secretagogues for growth hormone instead of growth hormone. Secretagogues will stimulate your body to make its own. You want to give things like Clomid, Eclomid, which stimulate your hypothalamus to produce the stimulus for luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, before you put them on something that will turn off the brain's function and the peripheral gland. And that's the problem. It's like if you have low cortisol and you use something like high dose of cortisol, the brain will shut off and the adrenal glands say, "I don't need to make cortisol because you're putting it in from another source." So the signal ACTH to the adrenal glands, you lose that signal. And if you do it long enough, it kills it. The circuit becomes atrophic. It whittles away. It's like, you do everything to build your muscles and then you stop doing all that and they shrink. Well, the brain's capacity to make hormones involutes or shrinks too.
Wow.
So
And that's a
stay
piece
away
that
from.
nobody's really talking about.
No, they don't, because they look for the quick fix and they look for the glamour, the sexiness. Oh man, I'm going to shoot myself up with testosterone. That's sexy. But I was talking with a new client this morning, and he's on 120 or 140 milligrams of testosterone by his doc in Massachusetts. And I said, "So how much DHEA are you on? How much pregnenolone are you on?" He said, "None." And so, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Well, I felt good when I started. I'm not feeling as good now." You know, I go, "Bingo, that's the problem. He needs to be on DHEA and pregnenolone, because those are the top of two separate pathways. the pregnenolone, the mother of all hormones, is what it's referred to, goes down one pathway, and then DHEA goes down a second pathway, which leads to things like testosterone, DHT, androstenedione, estrone, estradiol, estriol, and the other side deals with cortisol, aldosterone, and so forth. So it's about you put in one hormone and it shuts off more than 35 others. It's not the way it's supposed to work.
Not at all. No,
No.
but you're right. It's the most attractive and easiest thing to do, especially when you have a client that's passionate about finding any way to get back to or get to a fraction of what they once were. And that's it's been billed as the one-stop shop to wellness in males.
Yeah.
But there's a huge downside to know what it's talking about. Once you come off of it, if you don't have a step down protocol, if you aren't properly plugged in with a doctor, if you go cold turkey or have to go cold turkey, the downside of it, my gosh,
Yeah.
there's
Crash and burn.
yes,
Crash and burn. Yeah. And that's why we have a protocol when we find that testosterone levels are low, and we use free testosterone, not the total. And I know I've probably shared this with you in our first interview, but I'll reiterate it here, is that free testosterone is the key, not total. And the VA and most traditional conventional doctors, they look at the total and dictate everything based on the total. And there was a case that really taught me how important free testosterone is. And this was maybe 10 years ago, where it was that he went to two endocrinologists at the VA and then was frustrated with their statements that he went to a civilian endocrinologist who said him basically the same thing. What was it? His total testosterone was 853. And just for relevancy, 270 to 1130 is the range, big range. So he was 853. And they're saying, you've got plenty of testosterone. You don't need it. He says, but I don't feel well. You're depressed. So they wanted to put him on antidepressants. So he comes to me, and I see the 853. And then I also see his free testosterone was 4.7. Okay. It should be 15 to 20 for his age. 4.7, less than 5. And testosterone is important because it gives us our sense of well-being, our assertiveness, our competitiveness, our memory, recall, the ability to learn new things, anti-depression, helps with sleep, anti-suicide, also with creativity, memory, recall, the ability to learn new things. And he didn't have any of these things. No libido. He feels like horrible, depressed. And if you have testosterone deficiency and you're put onto an antidepressant, a lot of times it doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because the person doesn't have a deficiency of Prozac or a deficiency of Paxil or a deficiency of Abilify. They have a deficiency of these hormones. Yeah. You need to replenish it. And then one of the other hormones that is being missed is vitamin D. Vitamin D has incredible amount of articles, 831,000 articles, relationship between depression and low vitamin D level, increased cancer, increased cardiovascular disease, increased autoimmune diseases, increased anxiety, increased pain. So from vitamin D. So there's other hormones that need to be looked at. DHEA needs to be looked at as well. And it is not being looked at clearly. So we need to look at not just testosterone, which is such an easy, as you said, such an easy fix, just stick a needle in someone. But you have to understand the risk factors and the fact that it'll make you worse. There's also a very small population of people who get testosterone that end up with panic attack. And it's because we found that free testosterone, or when testosterone gets into the brain circulation, it will cause a triggering of a chemical called adenyl cyclase, which is like speed in the brain. So I've only had very few cases, but I had to go literature search to try and explain it. And I found the articles that showed that it's cyclic GMP is really the end result, but it's this adenyl cyclase from testosterone going to DHT and then DHT to 3-alpha androstenedione. And so it's a cascade of conversion. And if you convert to testosterone rapidly, you get the response. In a study we did with the product that we were testing in 140 people, 2 people had the panic attack from it. No history of panic, no history of anxiety. They were just regular civilian population. So that can happen. So the guy with the less than 5 on the free, the problem was that he did not have adequate amount of gasoline. He had crude oil. Total testosterone, I analogize it to crude oil, and free testosterone is like gasoline for your car. And you put crude oil into your car, and you put gasoline, and everybody knows the answer to that, I hope. And the problem is you need to put the right fuel in the system.
Yeah.
In order for it to run properly, in the right quantity of it. And, a lot of docs are arbitrary in how they select the dosing. What we do is stepwise. We start low and we slowly step up by only 10 milligrams because their experience or training hasn't allowed them to fine tune the approach. And testosterone, when it's used appropriately, is great add-on. But the reason why our patients don't get problems with crashing from testosterone is because we always start them first on clomiphene. Clomiphene helps to keep their natural circuitry working and pushes it to work harder. And then if they're doing well, I'll say, okay, so you obviously want to try some injectable testosterone. They said, yeah. And I said, okay, what we'll do is leave you on Clomid, which protects the circuitry, and we'll add a small dose of our blended testosterone. And they get on a low dose of blended testosterone. They come back and say, darn, I feel fantastic with this hybrid protocol. I said, okay, great. And I've had people come back and say, I feel great on this, but I don't like sticking a needle in my leg. I was doing well on the tablets of Clomid or capsules of Clomid. And that's up to the client. I'll give them the opportunity to try everything because I don't know what works best for the individual. And the only way to figure it out is to give them an opportunity to try everything. And so you give them a spectrum of protocol, whether or not it's Clomid by itself, testosterone by itself, Clomid and testosterone, and let them tell you, hey, with this combination or with this, I feel the best. I said, okay, that's your formula for your body, for your chemistry. As well as I try to explain to them so they're understanding why we don't start with testosterone first. Because the circuitry might be intact and Clomid might be an answer without the need for injecting testosterone. And we have about 800 people who are on the Clomid doing very well.
And that's huge. Being able to take a patient first approach to understand everything about the person, figure out their unique traits, figure out what they're uniquely dealing with, then assigning a protocol is so much better than what a vast majority of us are experiencing through either our normal civilian doctors or the VA, because it's really not tailored to the person in my experience. And the same goes for a lot of my friends. Um, what are some amazing recommendations as far as supplements that you recommend anybody that's struggling with any of these challenges that they can start on today? We know vitamin D is a huge one. And a lot of us don't even know that our brain thrives and craves oils. So what are some basic supplementation that we can start today?
Yeah. Since I work with the inflammatory factor, Things like vitamin D, very important, 5,000 to 10,000 units. You need to get a blood test by your doc to make sure that, where your vitamin D is. The majority of the people we see are low normal, not abnormal, but low normal. And our goal is not to perpetuate insufficiency level. Insufficiency is not a deficiency. Most healthcare providers will only treat you if you're deficient. So if the cutoff is between 29 and 30, and you're at 30, they'll say, you're normal. Okay. And because of the reading that I do, studies that have been done, academic studies been done on safety and benefits of higher dosing, we go for 80 to 100 nanograms per milliliter of vitamin D, which the majority of docs out there are happy if you're above 30. So we go for what's called therapeutic levels, not cursory levels, not just within the normal range. So vitamin D, pregnenolone, because it improves the inflammation in the nerve communication called synaptogenesis, helps with quality of neurons. It's free radical scavenging, and it also stimulates the production of GABA. So you've got the majority of our veterans have problems with insomnia, and that's partially due to melatonin deficiency. But it's also due to low level of pregnenolone, which becomes progesterone, which becomes allopregnanolone, that produce GABA, which is the natural sleeping hormone in the brain. So we have people who've gone from not sleeping, poor sleep, to sleeping like babies because we've given them the tool, the product to improve the brain. The fats that you're talking about, whether or not it's vegetable based, not vegetable oils, but vegetables like avocados and so forth, which are very good. I enjoy my avocados. And there's a difference between Florida and California avocados. Florida is a little better, okay, for the different oils that are in there. Natural omegas from deep cold water deep sea fish, orange roughy, salmon has it, sardines have it, anchovies have it, good oils. I don't know if you're talking about hydroxybutyrate and some of the other oils that are out there. They have products. I've got one floating around here, which is macadamia nut with hydroxybutyrate oils in it. Someplace. It's called Fat Bomb. The Fat Bomb. The Fat Bomb. It's really good. It's really good. When I travel to dry places, I'll take that. But I was just in a wet place, so I got lots of good fish and so forth. So I had a lot of omegas and so forth. So the timing is important also. The DHEA, if you take it 15 to 30 minutes after dinner, not only will it help with the coating of neurons, drop in inflammation in the brain, drop inflammation below the neck, stimulate the immune system, help with wound healing, help with insulin and glucose for blood sugar metabolism. The DHEA, when it's taken at nighttime, will stimulate growth hormone production. So you get a freebie. And it's increased growth hormone about 10% in males, 15 to 20% in females. Taking the pregnenolone 15 to 30 minutes after dinner will increase the production of GABA, so you sleep much better. The only caveat and warning is if you take melatonin, hold the melatonin for a couple of nights, because if you add pregnenolone and melatonin together, it's additive. And I normally get up 5:30, 6:30 in the morning. When I made the mistake of taking melatonin 1.5 milligrams, I'm very sensitive to it, and 100 milligrams of pregnenolone, I got up at 11 o'clock in the morning, groggy, very groggy, because it's an additive effect. And then you can take the vitamin D also after dinner, the benefit of vitamin D and its anti-inflammatory immune system stabilizing is really good. Articles about vitamin D protecting you from autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, inflammation of the thyroid. Articles have been coming out showing people with this inflammation of the thyroid gland, all of them had deficiency of vitamin D.
Wow.
So they're calling it an association, but it looks like it allows people who are prone towards the inflammation of thyroid to have it occur. Graves' disease, Hashimoto's from vitamin D deficiency, since it's protective. In the heart, on the myocarditis, which we're hearing a lot about, vitamin D helps to downregulate the myocarditis, anti-inflammatory, by stabilizing the immune system. And that seems to be across the entire spectrum of health, is how vitamin D works, is by modulating inflammation. Yes, there are other things that it does, stimulating this on, that on, and so forth. But it's anti-inflammatory properties by downregulating the systems that create inflammation. That's really the key.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doc, I can't thank you enough for coming back on the show and schooling us up on everything today. It's an absolute pleasure. Again, the website is millenniumhealth.com.
No. The key educational site is TBI.
That's it.
Now.org. And if you go to the science, you'll see a lot of the articles supporting everything that I say. Everything that I preach about are derived directly from the literature. It's not me just sitting here and pontificating and saying all this stuff. It's actually from literature, and there are lots and lots of articles. And then I've written 5 new articles, which are posted there. And then if you want to see some of the podcasts, like our first one, and some of the pieces from Joe Rogan and from other podcasts to disseminate the information, it's under the media. And you can read about if anybody out there wants to come on board, where to go go on board. And we still are funding our veterans as best we can. We're now paying about 60% of their entry fee into the program. And hopefully by the end of the year, we can pay for 80%. Okay, that's our goal. Our real goal is to have the DoD pick it up through the VA and provide it to all the vets. And that's it.
Absolutely. Guys, please check out the protocols. I've been taking them. I am in the time that I've been taking the protocols, I've not only seen significant improvement in my function and my ability to carry on conversations, and not just my podcast life, but in the real world. But I've also noticed enhanced mood and ability to engage with the world with better view. And that's not, this has come from someone that I believe in all modalities, but I do understand that for a lot of us, we can only take medications for a certain amount of time, especially SSRIs. And for me, this has been a journey in trying to live a life that's a little bit more free of medications and abundant, and it's filled with a lot more actual like nutritional supplements. Things are actually found in the real world that can have an amazing impact on our lives. And that's just my take on it. I'm always searching for new things, and this works for me. So please check it out. At least reach out to Dr. Gordon and sit down, have a consultation, and chat with him. But yes, again, thank you so much, Doc. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, and hope to see you guys again soon.
Will do. Thanks for the opportunity, Denny. Have a good one.
Always.